everybody, my name is Little Skimmer, and welcome to a new thing I'm going to be doing, top 10s. And to start off, I thought, why don't we do a Cuphead top 10? So as you know, recently I have finally beaten Cuphead, yay! But to start top 10s, I think we should do the top 5, it's not going to be a top 10, top 5 hardest Cuphead bosses. So before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, do that stuff, like the video, share it, and go check out my friend AJ. He's finally uploading again, so yay. But without further ado, let's begin with number 5. At number 5, we have the Frog Bros known as Ribby and Croaks in Clip Joint Calamity. So for this one, we start off with normally the brother, I believe Ribby, does some hurricanes, I forgot what they're called, but shurikens, I think. But he throws those at you like big fist punches, and you have to avoid them. Some of them could be pink, so you can parry them. That's normally where you get your parries from. And then after that, his brother Croaks will spit out some fireflies. Funny joke. And you have to destroy those while still hitting them. So for this phase, I'd normally use Roundabout, so you can just look back. It destroys the flies easily, and you can still hit Ribby and Croaks while Ribby's doing the shurikens. So anyways, on to phase 2 for them. Ribby goes rolling like a bowling ball and goes to the other side. And while he throws little Saturns like at you, Croaks turns into a windmill and just goes back and forth, making a wind effect. So you have to keep running that way while avoiding those little Saturns. So after that, on phase 3, they combine each other and become a slot machine for some reason. So the slot machine can do one of 3 attacks, but before they do that, they'll spit coins at you, but you have to parry its little fist. So after you parry the fist, it can have one of 3 attacks. So first they can do snakes, which is just a bunch of spiky platforms that you have to jump, but it keeps getting faster and faster, so you have to quickly do it. For 2, there's tigers, which is those platforms, but they're slow at normal pace, but balls come out of them. And 3, there's the platforms, which are bulls, which are the spiky platforms, but on one side of the screen, it'll have like a blast on it, so like a hole in it, and it'll blast up. And you have to avoid those. And after you finally defeat him, it's pretty satisfying, and I had quite a bit of trouble with it. So that's my number 5 pick. Now on to number 4. And at number 4, we have Grim Matchstick. Now, everyone knows this dragon. This dragon sucks. So, for phase 1, I would use Roundabout because you're going to be platforming on clouds, one of many platforming levels that you have to do during boss fights. So, you have to look at Grim Matchstick, and first, he's going to shoot like little eye rings at you with his eyes, and at the end of them will be parries. So make sure you parry them, or else those are the only parries you can get in the fight. So then after that, he'll decide to shoot fireballs in phase 2 at you, and they normally stay in the same pattern, like up down up down up down. So just go to the exact opposite side and you'll be good. But he also, during all this, does this little tail thing, and his tail goes up randomly at you to attack you. So then after all of that, which I'd normally use Roundabout for, I've changed to Lobber, which is a really good thing for his fight. The clouds you'll be having to platform will be even harder to use because they'll be going the other way, because he decides to fly on the other side of you, and his tongue will spawn a bunch of fireballs, some of which actually jump at you. But normally they won't go to the cloud you're on, they'll go to the cloud you'll probably go to. So you just have to trick them into going to a cloud that you won't be going to. So then after that phase, Matchstick will show that he has not 1, not 2, but 3 heads, and you'll have to avoid all 3 of them. So for the first thing they do, they spit fireballs at you, and which you'd be like, oh, let's just shoot them. If you shoot them, then they get into 4 separate fireballs, so you do not want to shoot them. Then one of the heads turns into a flamethrower and spits fire at you. And here I would use your super right after it does the first one, whichever super you have. and then it just keeps repeating the cycle back and forth. So once you finally defeat him, it's pretty satisfying because he is the last boss, most likely, of Inkwell Isle 2. But he's also the only one that I really had trouble with. So anyways, let's move on to number 3. At number 3, we have Rumor Honeybottoms. So for her battle, it's pretty tough. This is where it starts getting into pretty bad territory. So for her first phase, she calls the police bee to come at you with, like, you know, these weird things, like they pull them up and then a bunch of spike things that I can only assume are stingers come at you. Some of them would be pink, so parry them and just keep shooting them. But there will also be worker bees that come from each side. You want to avoid them, so shoot them. Normally I'd use Chaser for this phase. So then the queen bee comes out herself, and I'd use Chaser for this phase as well, so you don't have to worry about running into her and stuff. She'll do one of 3 attacks. So first she'll spawn this pink orb thing that you can parry. Now there is an infinite parry trick that you can use for this, which get 2 of them, or just 1, and jump into it and parry, and just keep spamming the parry button, and you'll parry, 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 like 6 or 7 times. That's how I got the parry 4 times in a row achievement. So anyways, after you do that, then she can also spawn a triangle that shoots from each of its corners, so you have to avoid that. Now, I don't believe it is parryable because it's purple. I don't know that. But then for the final thing that she can do on that phase, her head can turn into a chain, and she can go down and she'll spit out bullet bills, as I want to call them. So then after all of that crap, then she turns herself into a plane. Now, normally people think this is the hardest boss ever because of this phase, because she'll be at the bottom of the screen. But here, I have a tip for you. Use lobber or roundabout and aim up. And then you will attack her without ever having to worry about falling through the platform and stuff. And it's just, honestly, a breeze. So, but she can do 2 attacks. One is a saw that takes up 90% of the screen, which is a lot. And this other one where she shoots her fists at you. So avoid those at all costs, because normally you'll have pretty low health going into this phase, so you'll need it. So anyways, that is my number 3 pick, Rumor Honeybottom. Now let's see number 2. Number 2, King Dice. Now number 2 is for King Dice, and King Dice, oh King Dice, oh King Dice. He is really hard because of one factor. Most of the time, you won't get the same bosses. You can have normally you'll get 3 within a run, but you'll have to have this dice that you can choose 1 through 3, and you'll have to parry it, which is honestly hard. But you can get the timing eventually. So there are a lot of bosses, but I'll only talk about the ones I used to beat it. So first, I fought the boss called Chips. Which his name is that because he's just a bunch of playing chips. So what he basically does, does stuff really simple. He just transforms himself into like a bunch of, like, a stack of it, and just like goes in different patterns over and over. And there are normally openings that you can get, so try and get through those openings. Now you can also roll a 3 to get Mr. Wheezy, which I think he is easy, but you can potentially screw up really easily in his boss fight. So I'd normally choose Chips. So then after that, I'd normally go on to Pip and Dot, which are the dominoes, because theirs is pretty easy. All you need to do is jump a lot and basically shoot them, because normally their like 10-sided die isn't really that much problem. Sometimes you can even parry it. And then their like weird bird thing, that bird die thing, I don't know, are pretty cool. So then after that, I'd go on to get a save, of course, and then I'd get Mangosteen, yeah, that's his name, the 8-ball, because he's pretty easy to do. All you need to do is avoid those boxes and his little weird circle psychic thing he does, and that's pretty easy. Make sure to not land on the horse or the monkey. Those two are awful to do. But then after that, Make sure to also not land on the start over thing, because you can start over on this boss fight, and I suggest you really don't want to do that. But then after that, you get to the end. You fight him, King Dice. So King Dice is, of course, the hardest one out of all the mini bosses you can do, because well, if you are bad at parrying, get good, or get parry sugar, which I had to get parry sugar, because you have to parry a bunch of his playing cards, or else you'll fall into a bunch of other playing cards that aren't pink and get hit. Now, there is this little cheese technique where you can get behind his glove, but it's really hard to do that. So I just man it out and do it how you're supposed to. But then after that, you finally beat him, which it was really satisfying. So before we go on to number 1, here are some honorable mentions that I like to mention. Okay, so my first honorable mention is Beppy the Clown. So honestly, pretty fun boss fight, but not enough, to get it. He was almost number 5, but I think the frog bows does a bit narrowed him out. He's pretty easy. Got a lot of parry opportunities. That's an easy one to get a bunch of your supers in. So he's pretty easy. Just don't try and screw up. He's pretty hard, but he's not the hardest. And my second honorable mention will go to Cala Maria. Now, a bunch of people are probably going to argue over this, like, oh my gosh, Cala Maria is so hard. I either got lucky or just it's not even that hard. So, she has a bunch of random attacks. Just basically, you eventually get really good at them. So, they're not really hard. It's just overwhelming how much stuff is on the screen. And for my final honorable mention, we'll have the devil himself. Now, the devil, he has a lot of difficult patterns, but once you learn them, it's pretty easy. I had to parry sugar for him because a few of his attacks were pretty hard. Anyways, with those honorable mentions said, now on to the number 1 spot. At number 1 here, we have the Dr. Call's robot. Now, Dr. Call is, his first phase is probably his second hardest phase in the fight. So what you have to do is laser. Avoid that. This parry thing. Avoid that. And don't forget about these little magnet bomb things. Avoid those. But after you destroy any of those, then you have to deal with another thing. Like once you destroy the laser, then you normally would have to deal with him spitting out a bunch of gears and stuff. And nuts and bolts. And if you destroy the middle of him that spawns that weird thing you have to parry or else the laser will hit you. If you destroy that, then his hands will do a bunch of stuff like his hands will come in and try and grab you, and he'll also spawn this magnet that pulls you toward the magnet. The magnet won't hurt you, but it's really bad. And then if you destroy the thing with a bunch of the magnets coming out, then once you destroy it, then these bombs that follow you will come and attack you. And that's only the first phase. But after you destroy all 3 of those things, then there's a heart that spawns and you have to destroy it. And once you do that, his face will go flying and it's on to phase 2. Now phase 2, it isn't that hard. They're just bombs spawn every single time he goes across the screen back and forth. And you have to hit his head, which is a bit hard, but it's not really hard. Now on to the hardest phase. So once you destroy his head, it'll come up and Dr. Call will come out. So this is where his inner Eggman fanboy comes in. He just loves those Chaos Emeralds and he just has to get them. But all jokes aside, this is a really hard phase. So what you have to do is, there's Red, which has a bunch of bullets that come at you somewhat slow, or there's the blue one that have a bunch of that doesn't have that many blue bullets, but they come at you somewhat fast. So you have to do that, and it's super dang long. So after you finally face all of that things, you finally beat him. So I felt really accomplished when I beat that. And knowing that there wasn't that hard of challenges after I beat him, I was, suffice to say, pretty satisfied that I beat him. So anyways, that was my number 1 pick. But then again, those are just my crummy hardest bosses. Say in the comments below what you think the hardest boss is. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way you never miss the video. And don't forget to like the video and share. Don't forget to go check out my bud AJ. He's finally uploading again. And I'll see you all next time. Bye!